Welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self. If you are a new listener, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. Well, today we're going to touch on something that keeps coming into my awareness, and that is related to healing or just experiencing ancestral trauma.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of receiving of information related to this has just been a bit intense lately. Um,
Mm.
so I want to kind of start by maybe suggesting how that works, because when I say something like that, I feel like maybe sometimes that can be a little confusing. Um, so
Yeah, I think help us understand what ancestral trauma is.
yeah. So what I've been receiving, and when I say receiving, this is me referencing Mount Glass, right? Just, masters, teachers, guides, loved ones, angels, self, and source. The way that they communicate can be very much like they'll bring it into my awareness in the physical, as like I get a notification on my phone that somebody just launched a video and it's about ancestral trauma, or somebody I'm talking to just brings it up, or they say something about, I don't know, I know my ancestors went through something like this. And I'm like, what? How did that happen? Right. Or, maybe, I was having a conversation with my dad. Thanks, Dad. And he brought it up and I was like, what is happening right now? Right. So like,
And so you've actually been getting these repeated messages of looking into ancestral trauma for like the
right.
last week or so.
Yeah. It's
And
been
it's
really
like
intense.
pretty much daily, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's been intense. And so I was having an experience, right, where a little bit of a depression period, you know. Mine don't usually last very long, a day or two at the most, but I was feeling pretty sad. Uh I was having these moments of like, despite all those around me that love me and I know that, I was still feeling like I wasn't good enough. And I heard it loud and clearly in my head, right? And when I say here, I'm not talking about audible. I'm talking about the thought that pops in as strong as humanly possible, but has a slightly different tone than your own, right? So
Mhm,
please check
mhm,
out some of our previous episodes where we cover some of that. But
mhm.
yeah, and it was, this might be coming from something other than you, right?
Mhm.
In the sense
This
of this
information
information,
or the
the feeling.
trauma or
Yeah.
okay,
The
okay.
feeling of not feeling like I'm good enough, and so I just sat with it and I was like, okay, clearly you're bringing up ancestral trauma. What exactly is it that you're trying to tell me? Right. And then I just
Mhm.
continue to get more repeated messages about it. So I was like, okay, we got to figure this out. Um, so ancestral trauma, you asked me that question. What is it? Right.
Mhm.
Um, so in my experience so far, what I understand is that you have a lot of, you know, ancestors, and those ancestors might have had their own traumas. And, then from the next, uh, generation, and they had their traumas, and the next generation had their traumas. And what we may be discovering is that that kind of energy or emotions and memory is tied into that, even in our physical presence today. So, example, that they're trying, probably already succeeded. And they're, I haven't Googled this, so I don't know, but like, there's computers that they're trying to make to use DNA to store memory, because DNA
Mm.
stores way more memory than any computer else out there, right? So, if you think about that, and you think about that our body is made up of DNA of those that have come before us, now you're talking about memories stored in your body from those that came before you. Now add emotion to that memory, right? And what does emotion do? Emotion usually impacts your energetic field, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So everything's made up of energy. Now you've got energy, emotion, and DNA memory. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. And that is all still stored within us. So, how does that impact you? Imagine.
This is also fascinating.
Right. I
You're
mean,
really blowing my mind here.
I mean, this is something that was like sitting here just kind of like receiving this information like, huh, that is fascinating. That is really fascinating. And if I have ancestors that might have felt in their lifetimes that they weren't good enough, and then the ancestor before them, and then the ancestor before them, which I have at least verified on certain family members of mine, right? And I was
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
hmm, maybe that's where it's coming from. Now, I don't want to dismiss that my own personal experiences that I've had that might have led to me feeling that way as well. But what that does mean is that I am still carrying not only their emotional traumas, but I'm adding on top of it mine, thus making it grander.
And so this isn't a way to dismiss responsibility
Right.
because you still have responsibility to heal yourself and what you're carrying from past traumas or past generational traumas.
Right. Right. And I, so I was like, okay, guys, why don't you guys tell me? Fantastic. We've come to the realization that I got to not only deal with my own shit, but I got to deal with everybody else's before me. Phenomenal,
Great.
great. And and I was like, okay, so how do I solve this? How do I
Mhm.
get through this? Can I heal it? And as soon as they're very present at the moment. So like as soon as I heard or even asked the question, the response was already there. And the very first response I got was acknowledgement, to acknowledge that those traumas existed in the first place. So it's like, okay, so I have some ancestors that went through some things. I know my family history, right? Not everyone is that lucky though to know their
Mhm.
family
Mhm.
history. So you would either A, have to do some research and look into that. But again, there's also those that out there that might not have the ability to do that. So what are you left with?
Yeah, so what do you do if you're adopted?
Right. I just heard sit within.
Mm.
Sit within. Oh man. And that's interesting because I'm constantly getting reminded to do my meditative practice.
Mhm.
Oh my God. It just dawned on me because I have my own coach, right? Like we all need the help sometimes. And so I have my own coach. And I remember her telling me I just now remembered this, that I needed to start working on my ancestral or working with my ancestors more, like in my meditative
That's
practice and
right.
with like the types of what do you call that you do when like, you using your altar or like, you give them suggestions or offerings or something like
You
that,
give
right?
them gifts. Yeah, like
Mhm.
offerings, yeah.
Right. So I just remembered that. It's fascinating. So so first off, the first thing that I heard was acknowledging. So acknowledging that, it exists in the first place or that it's present, right? And then I was like, okay, so what's next? What's after acknowledgement? I'm like, give me the steps.
Come on, list
Let,
them out. Let's go.
let's have it. Let's have it. And the next thing I heard after hearing acknowledgement was give it back to me for just a second. Finding ways to release by, okay, they're repeating sitting with it. Oh, observing
Mhm.
and then learning how to observe it.
Rather than going through the experience again
Right.
or like as you were in it.
Right.
So a little bit more of like a detachment stance of looking from above
Yeah.
or from the outside in and still feeling compassion and
Yeah.
empathy, but not attaching to the emotions felt during the trauma.
Not having to attach to it. That's a good
Mm.
keyword. And they're also talking about I don't know what that means. they're showing me like a swirl, like a funnel, like a,
Mhm.
you take like a ribbon on a stick and you twirl it
A
around and
whirlpool?
yeah. Oh, don't get sucked in. Okay.
Mm.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Imagery, guys. So I was like, what does that mean? Don't get sucked in. Don't get
Swirlies.
sucked. Right. Don't sit too long within it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Um, yeah. So it's
'Cause the whole
fascinating.
point of this is to move through it
Right.
rather than get stuck in it again.
Right.
Mhm.
And so you do that by becoming an observer. And this is something that you can practice, even not dealing with ancestral traumas. Learning how to observe your own emotions and your thoughts and things
Mhm.
of that nature, just kind of wave at it as it passes by, and I try to teach and tell other people when they learn how to I mean, like I said, there's no specific way to meditate, but like one of the first things that I suggest learning how to do is becoming an observer of your thoughts and not taking an
Mhm.
immediate action on the thoughts that you're having in that meditative state. Just being aware that the thought is there, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And we talk about that a lot where we talk about awareness.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
And if you
so
need assistance on meditating, we do talk about meditating, I think 2 episodes ago, just all the
yeah.
benefits of it, so don't forget to check that out. Shameless plug.
Link below. Thank you. I love our shameless plugs and inappropriate moments. It's amazing. Or was it appropriate? I don't know. Yeah. So there's that. Okay. So tell me what after becoming an observer, how do we actually heal it? Can it be healed? Yes. Well, that was blunt. I just got a yes.
Okay. And and how?
Right. And be more specific. Take time, take small steps in your observation. You can feel through it. Let it out with a cry, with a laughter. I mean, if it's trauma, come on now. Laughter is key.
Mm.
It brings you to a higher vibrational state. It allows you to release the things that no longer serve you. Okay. I'm
So,
intrigued.
I just thought of, if this is an okay moment to add in a little story.
Yeah. Story time.
Cool. So I just thought of an experience that I had, in my, younger years growing up. My parents divorced, and I remember feeling very angry for many years. And I once I started letting go of that anger, I actually started feeling shame for holding on to that anger for almost a decade.
Mm,
And it was actually in my early 20s that I had these moments. I wasn't consciously aware of what I was doing, but I was actually taking time to sit with the image of that younger me experiencing my parents separating, my world falling apart, them getting a divorce, us having to move to a different school district. And I just felt so much compassion and love for myself. And it was like I said, it's okay that you felt angry. And it is completely understandable why you were so hurt. And it was in those times that I was actually able to let go, like truly let go of that anger and the shame that I felt from that. So it wasn't that I was attaching myself back to that anger
mhm,
for the events, but rather seeing that child self of me going through that experience and providing validation and comfort and love and acceptance of myself that made me feel healed
that's
from doing
awesome.
that. And so in a similar way, being able to, sit with, events or traumas that we've heard from our lineage and even looking at our own traumas.
They're expanding on that quite a bit at the moment.
Mm.
Um, because I keep asking in my head, like, for those of us that like the tangibles, the physical
Mhm.
elements to do things and practice things with, right? What is it, modalities or,
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever. Um,
Which we've
uh
done another episode on that. We will link that below if you wanna reference more modalities that you can try to practice connecting with yourself and your guides.
There you go. There you go. Look at you
On a
promoting
roll
us.
today.
It's awesome. Um,
Alright, guides,
yeah.
come on, Mount Glass. What's
So
up?
here's what they gave me. They said if you have a picture of your ancestors,
Mm.
take a look at the picture and then close your eyes and then try to visualize that ancestor and then do what Carrie is suggesting. Give that ancestor love and compassion during the times that might have been a struggle for them, during the times that might have been considered a trauma for them. Let
Mm.
them know that they're okay. Let them know that that will carry on into their lineage and can be healed by you.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
I love that.
That's pretty cool. Okay. So now they're
Gives us
asked.
something to do with all those old pictures.
I know, right? Finally, you can bring those out. Um, okay. And so now they're talking about if you don't have a photo,
Mhm.
then just imagine what your ancestors might have appeared like. Just come up with anything. And then I just heard Brady, "Oh, where have you been?" I just heard Brady and he said, "Don't worry, everything that you imagine really is
Oh.
what he just said. Um, that's cool. Thanks, dude. That's cool. I got goosebumps right
I
now.
love it.
Heard that. Uh, we had we had looked up and found some information on a suggestive practice for trying to heal ancestral trauma, right?
To help
Uh,
along with it, yeah.
to help along with it, right? And one of those was indicating to, if you're able to draw out or create a family tree. And if you have that information from your family or, any ancestral information, right next to each individual on that tree, all the traumas that they might have experienced or that they did experience. And that brings me back to what my guides were telling me by one of the first steps is acknowledging that it happened.
Mhm. Mhm. And if you have the opportunity to, have a conversation with a loved one, you can give them space to talk about it too, and that allows them to start their healing process as well. I understand that's uncomfortable and not everybody may have access to other family members that could provide that information, but it does help to shine a light in dark spaces.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And I think that we can all benefit from no longer carrying the, I keep hearing energetic blockages, like no longer carrying the energetic blockages, the things that are not allowing the process of flow in its natural state, the things that assist our bodies. Oh, wow. That's
I'm going to go down
powerful.
a ponder path here.
Let's do it.
You and I have talked about this in the past, but never on this. And this is again just things that we've pondered and thought about. We've talked about how, fibroids in women, how
Mm,
common they are, and how they're the medical community suspects that it's a genetic predisposition. But, we've definitely thought about how it might also be possible that because women for generations have been oppressed,
mm,
that this and maybe other physical presentations of discomfort show
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And, this brings me to also fibromyalgia. there have been numerous studies that, show a high frequency of, you know, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Uh,
Sexual assault.
mm,
There's a
yeah,
high rate of that in a person's history
yeah,
and the development of fibromyalgia. And that's just interesting. Not saying they are
right.
connected 100%. I'm just saying it's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Now, for those of you that that might have triggered, right? And
Oh, yeah. I
yeah,
apologize
no,
for
no, no, no.
not warning.
But I want to point out, I had very serious fibroids. They were
Mm,
large. They actually randomly started going from like probably something that had been there for like 10 years to like metastasizing quite largely. And that led to the discovery of the cancer, to the hysterectomy, to
mhm,
all the things that we've talked about in previous episodes that I've gone through. So please know she's fully aware of that, was by my side 100%. And so that is not something we take lightly.
mhm,
Now, I also want to say that like I've been toggling back and forth with, you know, doctors telling me that, oh, well, it's genetic, right? And yes, I'm aware that my mother experienced it herself. I believe uh my grandmother had it as well, right? Sorry, mom. And, so I'm aware that there are some links to my history. Now, on the other side of it, my conspiracy theory side of it, I also think that there's something seriously wrong with our food products and water and that
mhm,
there
mhm.
might be
And
assisting with
tr
that.
and treatment of people in general.
Right. However, what you just said
Mhm,
rang true to me.
mhm.
So, and I'm always using my discernment when I get information, but that actually resonated quite a bit. And I'm really open right now with my guides. So like,
And all I'm saying is it possible,
well,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So, because there hasn't, to my knowledge, there has not been a genetic marker that's been found
yeah.
for those things to
Interesting.
prove that it's passed on in genetics from my knowledge and maybe lack thereof. So, I mean, if you have other knowledge, I would love to hear it.
Link it below.
Yeah.
Seriously. Comment below. Let us know what you found out. It was astounding when I was going through it myself, how many other people were going through it. And I know that some of those that have reached out to me about that information had their own experiences, right? That were quite traumatic prior to ever discovering that that was a situation with them. Same,
Mhm.
same for me, right? And I remember going through when I first found out and I was like being prepared for surgery and things like that. I remember meeting with my coach and my coach connecting with my guides before I learned how to connect with them myself. And that was shared that, before she even knew what was going on with me, she shared with me, hey, you might be experiencing something and it has a lot to do with releasing sexual abuse trauma, not just for anything that you've personally gone through, but those that came before you have gone through, and
Mhm.
that you're here to help heal that. It stops with you. And that was
And
powerful.
and I definitely want to say that if you are potentially having a physical expression of, you know, uh, generational traumas,
Yeah.
doing the emotional healing work may not heal the physical aspect of it, but healing at the heart level, it frees us in a sense from this draw downward.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a powerful, method as well because there's always going to be the question mark of can I heal my body with just my mind, right? Or do I need the assistance? We do not tell you one way or the other. That is for you
Yeah,
to discover. Please.
absolutely.
Please.
That's for yes, that is your truth to find out for your life,
Right.
for sure.
Right. So, yeah, ancestral healing is very beneficial. it does help you. We do carry it. We carry the traumas of those that came before us, and we do carry the memories of those that came before us. Um, and that can impact your current life. So acknowledge it, sit with it, observe it, give it love, and see what
Mm,
happens.
I love that. Thank you so much, Shira. Thank you, Mount Glass.
Mm.
Listeners and viewers, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate you guys. And don't forget to love first
Love last.
and love always. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first,
Love last,
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.